All right, so let's move on to our preview of UFC 291 for the BMF title, Poirier versus Gaethje 2. This fight card, we're gonna, since it's a big pay-per-view card with lots of great fights, we're gonna cover the prelims and the main card. So we're gonna cover a total of 9 fights. The first fight we're gonna take a look at though is Jake the Celtic Kid Matthews taking on UFC debutant Darius Flowers.
Nice. So, Jake Matthews lost, 2 out of his last 3 fights, his most recent by unanimous decision. He's going to be fighting Darius Flowers, who is making, like you said, his UFC debut. Let's see.
Darius,
go
ahead.
Oh, nice. So, I think here, Darius, he's making his UFC debut. He had a weird kind of showing so far. He knocked somebody out, or I guess got a weird tap, but it was a TKO. He slammed somebody, and they broke their shoulder, so they had to tap.
He gets a lot of finishes.
He does. He's got like you said, I think he has a few, or you were telling me before, he has a few early knockouts.
Yeah, his last fight, which I think was Contender Series, I believe, was the one you were referencing where he broke the guy's shoulder by slamming him.
Yeah, that was the Contender Series.
So that was a minute 13 into the fight. This fight before that, before the UFC affiliation, 43-second finish. Before that, he finished a guy 45 seconds into the second round. So he's a guy that likes to get finishes. He's going to be looking for the finish, I'm assuming, in this fight.
Yeah, honestly, I still have Jake Matthews here. Short notices for me, I tend to just kind of go with the favorite, go with the guy who, he's not debuting. We've seen him before. We've seen him fight. We're familiar with Jake Matthews. We know he's lost 2 of his last 3. Hasn't won but 1 fight since 2020. But I think, with this camp he's just coming back, or not coming back from, coming into with this fight, I think he's really going to show up. I think he's going to take the win here. I don't think it's going to be a great spectacular performance because he has to kind of pivot his whole narrative with a new fighter. But I think he's going to take the win.
I think I have Matthews too. What's crazy is both these guys are 28, and they just have such a vast there's a vast gap of experience. Matthews has been in the UFC since 2014. So quick math, that's 9 years ago, since he was 19 years old, 20 years old. He's 11-6 in the UFC, only 28, like I said, and he's taking on another 28-year-old. But I think the experience in the UFC is going to be the difference in that one. That's why I'm taking Jake Matthews as well.
And moving on to our next fight, at middleweight, we have Roman Kopylov versus Claudio Ribeiro. So we have Roman Kopylov, 10-2, 9 KOs, 1 decision, so I think you can kind of tell what he's coming out here to do. And then you have Claudio Ribeiro, 11-3, 11 KOs, so based on those 2 facts, you can tell why the UFC made this match.
This is going to be a good fight. I think it's going to be a good, exciting fight to get the crowd going early on.
Yeah.
Kopylov comes in, he's 1-2 in a row, but he's 2-2 in the UFC. So he came in undefeated, lost his first 2 UFC fights, kind of put his career in jeopardy. He's responded nice with 2 straight wins since then.
I will point out he did lose to Albert Duraev. That was his most recent
loss. No,
but since
his
then,
most recent loss, correct.
He's rebounded well.
With 2 finishes since then.
Right, so maybe that kind of steered him in the right direction.
Ribeiro also came in, well, he didn't come in undefeated, but he is 1-1 in the UFC. So he lost his first fight. He's responded nice in his last fight, got a second round finish. So this is going to be a very interesting fight. I think it could go either way. Both guys are going to be looking for the knockout. I'm actually picking Ribeiro in this fight. I think he's a plus 195 when I checked underdog.
He is, that's accurate.
I think it's a close enough fight where with those odds, I'm not taking him as my bet, but I like Ribeiro winning the fight.
You see, I have Kopylov winning, but I completely agree with the thought process behind the why of your pick. That's actually the same kind of reason I go with the underdogs that I do go with. Toss-up being, nobody really knows what's going to happen. We see plus 300 favorites winning all the time.
Yeah, this is fighting. You never know what's going to happen. All right, so the next fight on the card, this features a little bit of a theme of the night, a fan favorite fighter who's kind of fallen on recent times. This is the first one we're going to take a look at. We got Derek the Black Beast Lewis versus Marcos Rogerio de Lima. Lewis, one of my favorite fighters of all time. He comes in 3 straight losses. He's lost 4 out of 5. While De Lima comes in exact opposite. He's won 4 out of 5. So it's kind of 2 careers, 2 guys going in different directions. What do you think about this fight?
Man, I sometimes just hate watching my favorite fighters fight.
When they lose it and they start losing, it's tough to watch.
It's stressful because it's hard to not let your feelings get in the way here. It's
when you
hard.
actually care about the dude, as weird as it sounds, like we care about him. He's one of our favorite fighters. It's just like Molly McCann. It just sucks.
Right? Yeah. I mean, Derek's trying to stop the slide here. I mean, like you said, 4 out of the last 5 he's lost. I mean, it's not the end, but he's got to do some major work to.
I mean, the
pick
loss
it back
right
up.
here, he might seriously need to consider this being the end.
It could, definitely. One of the big things that I like to see here is, Derek Lewis coming out. Always comes out with confidence. Marcos Rogerio de Lima, he's a good fighter. Like you said, 4 out of his last fights, he's won. But there's one thing with the heavyweights that, you can never forget. Everyone in heavyweight, one-hit power.
That's true.
One wrong move on either side, and the fight, for the entire fight, changes tides.
That's what Tom Aspinall was saying heading into his last fight last weekend. He was saying, listen, this is heavyweight. If you get touched clean, any of these guys can put you out. And that is very true, especially with Derek Lewis. He has insane power in this fight.
He does. Who do you have as your pick?
Saying that, and as much as I love Derek Lewis, I think, like I said earlier, it's 2 careers going in different directions. I have De Lima winning the fight.
Okay. I actually picked Derek Lewis. This is one I just couldn't jump off of picking him. I have a feeling here. I think he's going to finish. I think he's going to get the win. All right, another fight at welterweight. I think we have a bunch of those tonight. We have Trevin the Problem Giles versus Gabriel Maratina Bonfim. Gabriel Bonfim is the brother of Ishmael Bonfim. We saw him fight, 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Pretty good. He's 14-0, 3 KOs, 11 submissions.
Yeah, all finishes. He's never had a fight go to the scorecard.
Isn't that crazy? Where Tevin Giles, 6 KOs, 5 submissions, 5 decisions, only losing 4 times, twice by KO, twice by submission. So it's kind of safe to say when Trevin Giles goes to the scorecard, he wins. And, quite often other times as well. Honestly, I think Gabriel Bonfin's going to be a big problem here. He wins most of his fights by submission, but he also has a powerful attack, powerful striking, which makes him very dangerous. It's the opposite where you see normally a very powerful wrestler not be able to strike, and they kind of rely very, very heavily on the jiu-jitsu or the submissions to pull it off. He does that, but he uses his striking to wear them down, to get them to the ground, and then submit them. So it's very interesting with his approach to it.
Yeah, it's another fight where there's a huge experience gap between the 2 guys. Trevin Giles has been in the UFC for a while. Bonfim, this is only his 2nd fight. He is 1-0 in the UFC, obviously. He's undefeated. So 2nd fight, he had the Gilly finish in his 1st fight. I think less than a minute into the fight, which is crazy. What a way to start your career. Bonfim is a pretty big favorite on the Vegas odds. He's minus 315 compared to Giles, plus 260. I'm picking Bonfim in the fight. It's a little bit too not enough return for me to bet on him. But I think Bonfim, this is a nice step up in competition against a guy that's been there before with good experience. I think he takes a little bit of a next step, and he moves to 15-0.
Have you ever seen a Von Flue choke?
Yes, I have.
So Gabriel Bonfim is one of the only people in the UFC to pull it off. He was in the Contender Series when he did it, so not technically UFC affiliated, but just for him to be able to pull off a rare choke like that and get a submission, I gotta side with you. I think Bonfim's gonna win. I got him as my pick as well. I don't think we're upset here.
All right, so the next fight is the first fight of the main card of the pay-per-view. It's Michael the Maverick Chiesa coming back from a long layoff. His last fight was November of 21, taking on one of the most exciting, most entertaining fighters in the UFC, Kevin Trailblazer Holland. Holland comes in. He won his last fight. Before that, he lost 2 in a row. So it was a nice bounce back for him. Chiesa lost his last 2 fights, both in 21. So it's been a little while, like I said. Chiesa does not have a finish since 2018. He's 16-6, 10 subs, 6 decisions. He does not have a knockout either, which is surprising.
So that's one of those things where kind of the opposite of Bonfim here, where I think Chiesa's reliance on wrestling and submitting is going to be his undoing. Honestly, I think Kevin Holland kind of takes the clash of styles where he has 14 KOs to Chiesa's 10 submissions.
He has crazy power too. He knocked out Jacare from his back. He was on his back on the ground and knocked out Jacare.
Right. So think of that. We saw a fight a couple weeks ago. It was a guy, I can't remember his name. It was a prelim fight. He was trying to get a heel hook, and the opponent reached over and just clobbered him. And he was like, "Look, you took the fight on short notice. You're a wrestler. This is what I do to you." And he knocked him out cold. I think that's what's going to happen here. I think Chiesa is coming back off his hiatus, after injuries, coming back. I know it's been a kind of trialed time for him, but I think Holland's going to be more fresh. I think he's ready. I got Kevin Holland as my pick.
Yeah, I think Kevin Holland, he knows his weakness is wrestling. I think he's been working on that. This is a nice fight for him where it's somebody that does wrestle, but it's an older guy where older guy hasn't fought in a while, so maybe a good guy to kind of test your wrestling on. I'm with you, though. I think Kevin Holland, he's going to hit him a few times and knock. I think he's going to knock Chiesa out. I have Kevin Holland as my winner in the fight. I also have him as my first bet. Kevin Holland money line at minus 145. I have Kevin Holland winning the fight.
Tony Ferguson takes on Bobby Green, and what's obviously, for anybody who's ever seen a fight before, is going to be interesting. I know you've looked it up, but what a lot of people don't realize is Tony Ferguson is on a 5-fight loss streak.
Yeah, his last one was in 2019.
That's pretty crazy. But he's faced absolute killers in that time. Gaethje, Oliveira, Darush, Chandler, and Diaz.
Yeah, so he's faced killers, but I mean, this was a guy I thought of at one point
as the best
in 2019. He maybe not best ever, but he was like best at 155. Comparing him to Khabib, they should have fought Khabib. And it's sad to see. This was the next fighter, just like Derek Lewis, is kind of taking a downturn where it's like kind of sucks to see.
Yeah, it kind of hurts to see a fighter you like kind of take that downturn. But the same for Bobby Green. His last fight against Jared Gordon was a no contest. It was an accidental clash of heads. But the 2 fights before that, he lost to Drew Dober and Islam man, this is always hard to say. Makhachev.
We know Islam. You just got to say Islam. Islam's not a bad loss. Drew Dober's not a bad loss. But yeah, he hasn't won in 3 fights.
He hasn't won since February of 2022. So
he is a guy. He's a crazy fighter. He has a crazy style. Both these guys kind of have crazy styles. Very unorthodox. He can win anyway. 10 KOs, 8 subs, 11 decision wins.
And look at Tony Ferguson. 12 KOs, 8 subs, 5 decisions. I mean, both guys have the full tool belt of MMA that they are going to use. Anything can truly happen in this fight.
A huge difference in odds in Vegas. I was surprised it was this big. Minus 410 the last I looked for Bobby Green. Plus 310 for Tony Ferguson. I thought it would be closer than that. Obviously, Vegas doesn't think Tony Ferguson has much left. So that'll be interesting to see. I have Bobby Green as my pick winning the fight. Obviously, with the minus 410 odds, it's not worth betting on. But I have Bobby Green winning. What about you?
Yeah, so this is actually my first bet of the night. It's funny, right after you say it's not worth betting on. But I agree. It's as a money line bet, it's not. Minus 430 and minus 310. Unless you're putting $10,000 to hope you don't lose that. Yeah, it's not smart. My bet here is actually the over on the fight. I think both guys are going to come out very decisive with their strikes. They're both seasoned vets. They both know that the other has, brutal just knockout power or submission power at any given time. While Bobby Green's still my pick, like I said, first bet, locked it in. over 2.5 rounds.
All right, so the next fight of the night, this is one of the fights I'm most looking forward to. It's kind of like the last fight we talked about between Ferguson and Green, where it's two unorthodox, unique styles. This is Stephen Wonderboy Thompson versus Michelle what's his nickname? Demoledor Pereira.
Sorry, I like saying it with that accent. Demoledor.
Pereira comes in pretty hot. He's won 5 straight. Four of those, the last 4 decisions. Stephen Thompson comes in. He won his last fight against Kevin Holland. Before that, he lost 2 in a row. But before that, he was on a little bit of a roll. He does not get finished a lot. He's only been finished 1 time in his career. He has 6 career losses. Only one of them KO. It's 5 decisions. So he's a very durable guy. He has a unique style, crazy head kicks. Very, very fun to watch. He's a very technical karate-style striker. It's just awesome to watch. And then he takes on Michelle Pereira, who you never know what this dude's going to do. He's going to do backflips, try to kick you, run up on the cage.
Now, to Pereira's defense, he has chilled out with a lot of that. He still does it.
He's chilled out in the fact that he's not reckless anymore. He just does it at the right times now.
Yes, which I can appreciate.
Yeah. Keep your unique style, but try to win these fights.
Now, everything you said about Wonder Boy is 100% correct. I do have to add a couple things. One of them is a big glaring but. But he's 40 years old.
Yeah, but he's been fighting regularly. Like, he hasn't slowed down, so the age doesn't bother me at all.
My thing is, but he's 40 years old, so, where does that leave him against somebody like Pereira, who's 29? Fresh. It's not I never want to count Wonder Boy out, but that's obviously a question we have to think about when we're deciding who to pick for this fight. That obviously
he's actually the Vegas favorite too, which was surprising to me.
I know.
Minus 150 Michelle Pereira, plus 130 I had.
I think Thompson's honestly I think he's the gatekeeper for the division. If you want a shot above, for a title, you have to go through him. And
his only 2 losses, his last recent 2 losses, are against killers.
Yeah.
Bilal Muhammad, Gilbert Burns, 2 guys at the top of the division. So it's like, exactly what you said. He's like a top 5 gatekeeper.
Yeah, and if he doesn't lose, then he can take another run at the title for sure.
I have Thompson winning the fight. He's my pick for the fight, and it's actually my second bet of the night. I have the over 2.5 rounds. So I think this fight goes to the scorecard. Thompson has been a decision machine late in his career. So I have my second bet of the night, over 2.5 rounds, and my pick for the fight is Stephen Wonderboy Thompson.
Nice. I picked Michelle Pereira for this fight, and it's also my second bet of the fight, is Michelle Pereira money line. So if he can win by decision, I guess we will both win there.
All right, so moving on to the co-main event of the evening, Jan Blachowicz, Alex Potan Pereira, Alex Pereira first fight at 205, moving up from 185 after the 2 fights against Israel Adesanya. This dude is a killer, has hands of stone, hence his Portuguese nickname. Blachowicz, though, he's also a killer. Former light heavyweight champ. He's coming off of a draw. He fought for the title his last fight, a draw versus Ankalaev. What do you think about this fight?
So moving up in weight classes is always very interesting. He had his scuffle with Adesanya a couple times in the UFC, and with Izzy getting the belt, it kind of.
I think that weight cut was so hard for him too. He's huge.
He is a very big guy. So my biggest question here: how much stronger is he going to be? How much slower is he going to be? Or he could be faster if he was cutting that much weight. Being tired going into a fight, sucks. I don't think
the takedown is the big question.
I don't think he can. Even though he's going to be fighting at a more comfortable weight, Jan has been in that weight class forever. I know he bounces. He's not bounces. He's gone down.
Yeah, but honestly, I was looking at his recent. He's only had 1 loss in his last 8 fights. He's 6-1-1 with a draw, and 4 out of his last 5 fights have been for the belt. So he's been at the top for a little while now, which you got to respect. Pereira obviously had the belt for one fight at 185. He's a champion kickboxer. It's a battle of styles here. Two different styles. Jan, he can strike, but his advantage in this fight is going to be trying to take Pereira down, I think, because Pereira does have the one punch knockout power.
Check this, though. You know, Izzy just folded Pereira the last time out.
But I think a lot of that has to do with the weight cut.
So, taking that into consideration, how much more power does Jan have than Izzy at 205?
True, but if you don't have to drain yourself, that's 20 pounds you don't have to cut, which is a lot.
Yeah.
He can eat.
He may not have to cut nearly at all
in
comparison to where he was cutting for.
He can eat a lot more in camp. He's going to have a lot more energy. It'll be interesting to see. I think he wins the fight. I have Alex Pereira winning the fight. He's actually my pick, my second bet of the fight. I have Pereira money line.
Nice.
This is one that I'm kind of 50-50 on this fight, but I'm going to go out on a limb and take Alex Pereira because I like the odds. I got it at plus 100.
All right, so look, while you're on the 50-50 side, I honestly couldn't stop feeling the same way. You know, both guys beat Izzy before. It's a tough matchup. I pick Jan. He's my third bet of the night. Money line, Jan Blachowicz. I think he wins. I don't think it's, any bad stain for Pereira. I think it's just an adjustment to the new weight class. So that's my final bet for the night. And so for the long-awaited main event, we have Dustin the Diamond Poirier versus Justin the Highlight Gaethje.
Number two.
Number two.
Between the two guys.
We have, in my opinion, and I think in your opinion, one of the most exciting fights of the year.
It's the BMF title right here, baby.
Our favorite fighter, Dustin Poirier, fighting Justin Gaethje for the second time. He won the first time out. Both guys have been gatekeepers for the division. Both guys are well seasoned in the UFC, always fighting killers, always, dominating. And when they lose to a killer in their own right.
Yeah, each of their last losses are to Charles Oliveira and Khabib.
I mean, isn't that ridiculous?
So it's like, yeah, they beat everybody else but those two guys.
You had Poirier beating McGregor 2 out of the 3 fights they had, which is just crazy to even hear.
Yeah.
And Gaethje fighting who?
He fought Fiziev. His last fight dominated him. Michael Chandler dominated him. Lost to Khabib. He pretty much changed Tony Ferguson. After that fight, Tony Ferguson was a different person.
Losing, quite a bit in a row. I think we said previously in the pod.
That was the one that started it too.
Right.
So both these guys are killers. Both these guys, I think honestly, you have the 2 top guys in the division are Islam, Charles Oliveira. These guys are right there with them, Poirier and Gaethje. I think it's going to be a slugfest. I think it's going to be a very entertaining fight, very fun to watch. I can't go against Dustin Poirier. So he's my pick for the night. In my last bet of the night, so I got the over 2.5 rounds. This is a 5-round fight.
Wow, you got split right down the middle.
I got over 2.5 rounds. I don't think this fight goes to the scorecard, but I think it's going to be a Dustin Poirier 4th or 5th round finish. So I got DP. I got the Diamond winning, and I think this puts him right up there. You got to start talking about another title shot.
Right. They both have spoken recently that they're getting up in age, and that
a loss for either one of these guys might be it.
Correct. I know this is a not world title for anybody, but this is a BMF title. It doesn't spell the title that any one of them wants, but definitely I think with a loss here,
it gets some pay-per-view points, which is money. So I think they both appreciate it.
Absolutely. I like you can't not go with Dustin. I gotta go with our number 1 fighter, our fan favorite, Dustin Poirier. I don't have any money on this one because I want to watch this one with, just my eyes, not my pockets. I get too nervous with those, kind of too close to my heart. But I agree with you there. Dustin Poirier for the finish. I think he defeats Justin Gaethje and moves on for his next title shot.